Okay, it's 6 p.m. Good evening and welcome to our CAC meeting. It's currently being live streamed on our YouTube, and thank you if you're joining us via the live stream. I will now turn it over to Bart Schwartz to open the meeting, please.
Thank you, Masha. I appreciate that. And I do have a few brief remarks to make, and then I know there's a lot that we all want to talk about. So first, let me welcome everybody to the first CAC meeting of 2022. This has been a really terrific journey with CAC, and it has evolved through the process. The HUD agreement didn't really give us any guidance as to what the CAC might do or be, and I'm glad it didn't, because I think what all of us have produced is really a fine product and continues to help others and people at Nycha. So I'm very pleased with how this has evolved, and I know Edna and Asha and Eva from the Nycha side have really worked very hard, as have all of you, to contribute and take on duties and responsibilities. So I'd like to just highlight a few issues, and I'll start with safety and security, because I know that has been on the minds of not only the elected officials, but residents of the city, not only of Nycha. We all started addressing that a little before some of the others. It's good that now there is more attention being paid to it. I just want to remind everyone that it's included in the transformation plan that has been created, with the first two parts of the plan with Nycha. So everyone has an interest in this. Chief Secreto joined us at the last meeting that we had. I think that was at a community meeting, am I right? Rather than the CAC meeting, but he was on, and he was terrific. And he and I agreed during that meeting that we would together visit all the DAs, the 5 DAs from the 5 counties, to see what continuing help we could get from them, not the least of which is the forfeiture money that they have, and maybe they can make available for some of the security issues that we're interested in. Already, although Chief Secreto has not been on for that long, he's worked very closely with Fred Baldino, who's on the call, on this call. Fred, runs our field group, and Joe Jaffe, who is one of the senior people in the on the monitor team. He's also worked with Chief Secreto on specific things that we found that we thought needed attention. He agreed, and we're all working very, very nicely together, trying to improve safety and to improve security. And I'm sure we'll have more to talk to you about on that as well as we go visit the DAs. Also, I'm really delighted to talk about 2 former members of the CAC who I don't want to say have graduated, but have moved on to different roles. Alika Apri-Samuel, who was an original member of the CAC when she was in the city council and chaired the public housing committee of the city council, but also has a long history as a professional in public housing and worked at Nycha for a significant time. And Alika has been appointed by President Biden as the Region 2 administrator of HUD. That includes New York and New Jersey. I think that's the entire region. Some of the regions in the federal system are a little weird. One of them I know is New York, New Jersey, and Puerto Rico. And it seems they hold all their meetings in the winter in Puerto Rico. But I think it's just New York and New Jersey, which is enough. That when you consider the size of the public housing in the two states. And we're really looking forward to working with Alika on things that we were doing before and on new projects with her. And just to talk about safety and security, you will recall that it was in her district that there was a serial killer who killed 3 elderly women. And it became a terrible, obviously a terrible problem, but also a very frustrating one. And I know I'm confident we'll be able to get Alika's attention on some of the safety and security issues because she had to deal with it so much in East New York. The other graduate is Daniel Sherrod, who, as you know, likes to go by the name Sherrod. Sherrod had the title in HUD as his official title was the liaison for monitorships. But more than that, he really has been a hands-on supporter of us. He's just been a terrific resource for the monitor team and for Nycha, and the recognition of that by everyone has led to HUD agreeing to share, or actually second and send Sherrod to Nycha as the chief operating officer. And I hear different time spans when he'll be available. Depends who you talk to, but I think I'm confident in saying it's at least 6 months that we will have his 100% full-time, or I should say Nycha will have his 100% full-time. And I think that's a great step forward. We all know we work well together. We have a lot of the same interests and the focus. And so that's another important thing that's happened. Jeff Evans, who's on the call, but I won't put him on the spot unless he wants to be on the spot. Jeff Evans is taking Sherrod's place as the person at HUD who will have our primary relationship with. Jeff is an engineer. He's got an enormous amount of experience. He's already been doing work on Nycha, so it's he'll just slide right into the role that Sherrod had before. So I just want to get my notes straight. Yeah. So the last thing I want to talk about is not so uplifting, and it's about heating and the lack of heat. And we can't blame it all on the weather. I know we think this is a lot colder this year, and some days, and for a couple of weeks it has been, but it's not all a problem of weather. We are working very intensively with the heating department, but I do want to give you some statistics that I have, and then talk about briefly about them. In October and November, we conducted surprise inspections of the condensate tanks in all of the Bronx and all of Manhattan. That's 75 boiler rooms that we visited. And of those 75, 30 of the tanks were inoperable or in need of immediate repairs. And we did the same thing with regard to the tank rooms without going into details about what each does. But we went into 44 tank room inspections in 24 different developments. And again, an unacceptable number, 8 in the tank rooms needed immediate repair, and many others needed other repairs. And this is the kind of work that frankly should have been done, or at least more of it should have been done during the warm weather, preparing for the winter. And so what we're doing is of course we're trying to help in a kind of a triage as the issues arise now, but we're also working with the heating department to figure out why were they unable to get to all of the things they needed to get to. It's not they knew they needed to. People worked very hard, but they didn't get there, and we want to help them have a better scorecard at the end of this preparation season. And by the way, the season to get ready for next winter starts in about a month, maybe 2 months at the most. And we've got to get back. We've got to start getting the off-season work done to prepare for the winter. So that's a big focus of ours right now. Again, on heat and trying to get that maintenance done effectively, and record keeping be accurate, so we know what was done and what wasn't done. We're using analytics to try to identify where there's a greater need in different developments and at different facilities, and that's a good way to manage the limited resources that are available. Go to where it looks like the analytics take us to where there's likely to be a problem, where we need to be on our toes. So that's taking a lot of our time. I'm not going to comment on the litigation that started in Queens because of the development that has been without hot water for 4 months and other related issues. It's more complicated than that. We are taking a very careful look at it, and I think it's premature for me to comment on it. But we will be doing a report on what we find. We'll make that report public. But we want to do that in a careful, calm way, and make sure we're looking at all the factors that are involved, and actually how serious is the problem, and what caused it. So we will be addressing it, and the reason I'm raising it now is that I expected there would be questions about it, and I really don't want to get ahead of myself and answer questions when I don't have all the facts. But when we do have them, we definitely will be available to discuss it and to report on it. Joe Jaffe, who has been in a number of our meetings, and he is leading our investigative team, looking at what this is all about, and we'll be hearing from him in the future. So that's really all I wanted to say today in terms of the introduction, because I know that you want to dedicate today's meeting to thinking about what else we should be doing, to make sure that we're not falling into a pattern and just doing the things we've done before. Let's find new things that maybe we need, or new ways of approaching it. Eva had recommended a couple of meetings ago that we on some of the things we do, we take a deeper dive into them rather than jump from one thing to another, and that's worked out very well. Maybe that's something we should continue to do, or combine it with other things. But that's why this is a committee and a team working together, and I have every confidence that we will find new ways to help each other and share information to make things better. And I thank you for all of that and for being here this evening. Asha?
Thank you so much, Bart, for that introduction. And thank you to all of you, our CAC members and advisors, for your hard work. Before I launch into the agenda, I would like to make an introduction. We have Jeff Evans from HUD on the line. Jeff, thank you so much for being with us. And if you would please tell us a little bit more about you. We've had the privilege of having HUD representatives previously. When the CAC first started, we had Lynn Patton and Sherrod on, and Sherrod has stayed on until he has transitioned into his new role over at Nycha. And we're so glad to have you join us for this evening's meeting.
Hi, yeah, and thank you. Good evening, everybody. So I've been working with Shrod with on this monitorship project for Nycha since nearly the beginning. So since Sherrod's been detailed out to Nycha as the chief operating officer, I've slid into his position as the acting director for the monitorship team for HUD. So yeah, I just look forward to continuing the work that we've been doing. Thanks.
Thank you, Jeff, for your work and for joining us. And next, I wanted to go over the agenda for tonight. One of the things that we're hoping to release soon is an update about the work of the CAC, reflecting on some of the accomplishments that we've been able to initiate here around what used to be around the table and now around the Zoom room. And thanks to the leadership and of Eva for bringing it back to Nycha and for working on some of the initiatives that were suggested here. So I wanted to spend some time this evening talking through reflections of those, getting updates on those items, and then brainstorming for additional issues that we might want to look to in 2022. And then maybe we can narrow that list down and focus, as Bart said, on a deep dive on a couple of issues. And so after that, we are expecting some updates from several of our members. I know that DIFTA has an update, and we will likely hear an update from NYPD about some initiatives that they're working on as well. And after that, we will close out at approximately 7:30 by Bart. Bart, I see you have your hand raised.
Yes, I wanted to follow up on what you said about past accomplishments and ongoing accomplishments. I should have included that in my comments. We've put together a list of things. It's really quite impressive. It still needs some polishing in terms of the writing, and I think we have some more things to add. The next step will be to get it over to Eva and to Nycha so they can review it, and then together, the plan would be together to put that on our websites or to get it distributed. It's really quite an impressive list, and I think everyone will be pleased with the final product.
Excellent, great. So I wanted this collective body to talk through some of the list, and as it relates to any of your particular areas, to weigh in a little bit more about some of the additional nuances, challenges, goals, or things that can be continued to be improved upon as we go into 2022, and or related initiatives that you think we should discuss here, and hopefully Nycha will bring back. So while we still have the document in draft form, I wanted to just talk through it. And one of the first things that we talked about as a group, and you might remember that the CAC first took place back in May 14th, 2019. It seems like long ago and just yesterday in so many ways, but it's been a pleasure working with all of you and collaborating around the table. And one of the early meetings, we talked about the need for a revamped certification process, and the fact that the tool itself was, a little clunky, a little glitchy, that the questions themselves were a little cumbersome. And so I know that Nycha's worked really hard to revitalize that and had a successful rollout of the recertification process. And Nancy Ortiz was really instrumental every step of the way on that process as well. And so I wanted to see if there were any more updates on that or anything that anyone wanted to add as it relates to the recertification process.
I mean, I would add something, because I know we heard about it from residents at every development about how frustrating it was. If you were filling it out and then you stopped to come back later, you had to start over again. It was really, and now it's 180 degrees difference when you talk to residents about about the work that was done. And I think, even if I'm not mistaken, isn't it one of the mayoral agencies or that worked to develop it?
Yes, within the Mayor's Office of Economic Opportunity, they have something called the Service Design Studio, which helps agencies work with clients and customers, in our case, residents, to design services that are really tailored towards their needs. So that group came in and they worked with us to help design, make sure we were understanding the resident needs, communicating the resident needs in the right way. So they really helped facilitate the whole program with us.
Great. And I know we have a few resident leaders on the call right now. Did anyone want to weigh in? If you or any residents had an experience with the revised recertification process this year. Mr. Gross had compliments about it, but I see he stepped away. Does anyone else want to weigh in? Okay. Next.
Asha, sorry, can I add one more thing?
Yes, please.
While I think our initial feedback has been very positive to the annual review process, we just recently completed a resident survey where we had over 18,000 responses to our NYCHA-wide resident survey. And I have to admit, we were a little disappointed that we didn't see more positive results on the annual review question. I think it was fairly even as to the ease of use from last year to this year. And so this is something we're going to be diving into a little bit further to better understand the survey results from that resident survey and to see what could be causing that that minimal change really in the response to annual reviews. So we do want to take that feedback seriously and make sure we are getting it right. So we're definitely not done. We'll continue working to make sure we see improvement.
Thank you for that update, Eva. I'm glad to hear that the improvements will continue. The next issue I wanted to talk about is pest and waste management. That's an issue we frequently hear complained about. And one of our original CAC members, Tamika Williams-Moore, has since joined the monitor team. And she's working on a number of issues, but that is one of the issues that Tamika is working on along with Chuck Fax. And we happen to have them both on the line. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about the work that's being done, the pest and waste management area, specifically as it relates to potential work with residents.
Hi, thanks, Asha. The primary resident-facing initiative that we're working on right now is the Resident Ambassador Program. Is that something you would like me to discuss, Asha?
Briefly, that'd be helpful, Chuck, please.
Sure. We're concerned, we've been concerned since the beginning of the monitorship with the difficulties that NYCHA exterminators have in accessing units that are lived in by residents when remediations are scheduled. Often there's a breakdown in communications such that the resident isn't really prepared, isn't aware that the remediation is going to take place, isn't available because they're working. And so what we want to do is create a process that ensures that, number one, the resident and NYCHA are both in agreement as to when the extermination, when the remediation will take place. And that the resident will be there, will be available to open the door and greet the exterminator. And also, as importantly, that the unit itself will be ready for the remediation. And in order to do all of this, what we've developed is on paper, is a resident ambassador program that basically utilizes resident leadership to communicate with the residents, confirm that they're available for the remediations, and assists them in getting their residences ready for the remediation. if this program works, we're going to be able to accelerate the extermination process dramatically and save Nycha and the public potentially millions of dollars in what is now basically lost time and lost effort when exterminators are unable to access the developments immediately when they first knock on the door. We still have some kinks to work out. We've been working closely with Nycha on this proposal. We've gotten a number of critiques from the pest control people at Nycha, which we're addressing now, and we're also looking closely at the issue of funding to ascertain where we'll get the resources to compensate the resident ambassadors for the good work that we expect they'll be doing. And if we're excited about this, and we're hoping that once we nail down the funding issue, we'll be able to roll it out sometime in the late spring or summer.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for the update, Chuck.
Sure.
And it's so important to hear that there's going to be continued effort on improving the pest and waste system, pest and waste management processes, and most importantly, the access to resident unit issue. I know that's causing a lot of frustration for residents where, they feel like they're home during those times, and then the repair person doesn't come at the appointed windows, et cetera. So, or they might close a ticket without work getting done. So I know that that's a cause of great frustration too. So hopefully that system could be better coordinated. I'm going to move on to our next topic.
Actually,
Sure.
We shouldn't understate Chuck mentioned it, but the importance of getting the residents ready for the exterminators so they can do an effective job. You need to, and the ambassadors will be trained in how to do that so they can help the residents. And I think are we trying to create a stipend for each ambassador? Is that
That's right.
Yeah, that's I thought the direction we're going in. I think it'll be an excellent program once we get it going.
We're looking forward to it, Bart.
Yeah, thank you, Bart, for highlighting those important aspects of the program. And thank you, Tamika and Chuck and all of those folks at Nycha for your work on this effort. Next, I wanted to turn to the initiatives that the FDNY have been working on. And thank you, Chief Mike Kerwin, for being on the line for us. Early on in the CAC, we raised the concern to the FDNY that we are hearing complaints that FDNY was responsible sometimes for breaking doors because of having to enter the buildings under exigent circumstances, which is understandable. They have to get in as quickly as possible. But one of the things that we thought might remedy that is having a more standardized access to the keys and key fobs for all of the Nycha buildings. And I know that process has been worked on through FDNY operations, and that there are some updates there. And then more importantly, some updates as relates to in the event that a front door, an elevator door, it does get broken, that there's some responsiveness for potential explanation, reporting and remediation, and investigation, and all of those different aspects to explain why that happened. And hopefully those occurrences will be minimized. And so we're really proud that there's been such coordination and support from the FDNY, and we appreciate your continued participation and leadership on the CAC. So I wanted to turn it over to you, please.
Hi, Asha. So it's my understanding that all the new key fobs for the Nycha facilities have been distributed. Something that they want to work on next is, it's my understanding that there's also several Nycha buildings that don't use these key fobs. There are other style buildings. So those are going to require hard keys. So we're in the process now of trying to acquire or work on acquiring these hard keys so that we could easily access those buildings when we need to. And anytime the FDNY, if we respond for an elevator emergency or incident, and if we shut off the elevators, if there are elevator hoistway doors that are damaged, we make a notification to Nycha via our dispatcher. So we'll alert our dispatcher, and we'll ask them to notify Nycha that this particular elevator car has been shut down or is disabled, or this particular hoistway door is damaged, so that can get relayed to Nycha quickly. We've also notified all fire companies that all these Nycha entrance doors, they're under video surveillance. So we wanted to let the guys know that that's what they have, and that if an entrance door is also damaged due to us having to get in there without, and for some reason perhaps the key fob didn't work or there's other issues, we are also going to request our dispatcher notify Nycha, and then in addition we are requiring that fire company forward some documentation onto why that had to occur. So I think these things all together should help in reduce those occurrences. So that's what we're that's the plan, and I haven't heard of any issues so far. So hopefully all of that is working successfully.
Thank you so much for that update. I see that Mr. Martinez has a hand up.
Yes, so good evening, and good evening, Mr. Schwartz and Ms. Trimble and Ms. Mojo and everyone else who's here. I wanted to comment back on the recertification process that you had stated to put a comment in. So the experience that I have had that was relayed to me from members of this development, they will go to the office, and they have one experience was that the housing assistant told them to go and find someone in the community to help them with the kiosk because they wouldn't do it. We so far rectified that specific issue, but that seems to be an ongoing issue, as well as with the self-service portal, which is another way for persons to recertify. It was also reported to me, someone entered into the self-service portal to get an idea of the process and closed it out. And then the housing assistant called that person. It seems that the intention was to be helpful, but the come across was antagonizing. And so it appears that is a potential of why you're getting such bad reports on this process. I would suggest a script and a better accommodation. I also would suggest to give residents the option of how they would want to be communicated with outside of an emergency. Being if it's not an emergency, if it's not a flood in the apartment, if it's not, something other that calls for immediate attention, if that resident would want to receive an email, and have an email respond to that, they should have that option and communicate that option and have that option respected. But I believe that some of those issues are the reasons why you're not getting that result. And then in regards to the compactor issue.
But I'm sorry, Manny, before you move on, you had said, and I was writing down some good recommendations that came while you were talking, since it sounds like Nycha is working to continually improve the process. You mentioned a script. Who should have the script? What should that be related to?
I believe that the script should be given to the housing assistant, whoever is there to engage the residents. For example, in that particular scenario of self-portal follow-up, so that the residents don't feel that they're being surveilled on. And it doesn't give the access for a housing assistant to go off script and potentially engage a prior mindset or attitude. And I'm saying that to be, comfortable with the statement. I don't want to make any accusations. We do have some good, dedicated people, but It's the other, it's those who may have acquired some bad habits in regards to the relationship that brings down these attempts. So the script would be just a regular customer service script. Hello, such and such. I see that you were making an attempt. Is there something that I can help you with? Right? I understand that this could be a process. I'm not sure if this is, but I understand that it may be a process to help people feel more comfortable with the technology, right? To help those who are showing an effort to engage, to give them a better familiarity with it. But antagonization or the common relationship, relational dialogue that we're used to is not going to assist that.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Bart?
Yeah, those are very interesting comments and helpful. But I do want to point out that they're not related to the quality of the product. They're related to the delivery of the product. And I think it'll be easier to get the delivery dealt with than to have to hear that there's a problem with the product. So that's good advice.
And to that, Bart, also know that if I have a phenomenal delivery, I can sell a substandard product. If I have a phenomenal product with a poor delivery, I wouldn't be able to even get in the door. So, and then also one of the main challenges, or a huge challenge that we have, is this habituated lack of respect between, residents and management, right? That goes both. That has to be corrected. And I think that bleeds into everything else. And that is where we have the obstacles of improvement. Oh, and lastly, with the compactors, a compactor shuts down, we'll get a notice. We won't get a notice. We're getting notices now because I stressed the issue, but the notices doesn't give us the reason for the compactor closing, which is very important, because if it's a pest issue, we should know that there's a pest issue in the building, for us to take additional measures or make additional requests, such as the door sweeps. And by them saying that you have to put it outside, there should be dedicated places that we're directed to in order to be able to dump our garbage, instead of, because you say put it outside the building, and people will, and it'll be at this tree or that tree, and every other tree that you walk on, you see garbage all over the place. And with Pest being one of the primary pillars focused on the agreement, this is a necessary strategy to have these locations identifiable and communicated, especially when we're dealing with these repair issues, and also to let us know if it's mechanical, and to give us a time frame of when the mechanical part will be resolved, or if it's pest, and to give us a time frame of where the pest cycle or the pest control cycle is, so that we are better informed and we're not guessing.
Thank you, Manny, for that.
I just wanted to thank you for that feedback. I think you raise a good point that some of the reaction we may be seeing in the survey on the annual review may not, it could be partially about the platform. It could also be about our housing assistants, which I will admit, we do need much more training for our housing assistants. We have a lot of new housing assistants this year because we had major turnover in the last year due to civil service issues. And so I do think it could be a reflection of training issues as you're raising. And so that is also something we are looking into and are very aware of.
And lastly, in brief, Ms. Trimble, I want to thank you. I've been calling on behalf of residents, the CCC, and I tell them I'm the resident council president, and it goes straight through. I don't know if that was a back end issue or discussion that you had, but it's a lot more comfortable and a lot more fluent. And so if so, thank you so much for listening. We appreciate it.
You're very welcome. We're looking forward to talking to you this week too on our closed work ticket project.
Me too. All right.
Okay, great. Thank you. And as you were talking, I was taking notes on some of the additional suggestions you had as we're looking to things that we can hopefully build initiatives around, but customer service, mentality from NYCHA employees, particularly the new housing assistant population that is new to NYCHA, and information around the compactors being down. And I'm glad we have Chuck on the line to hear that recommendation. So hopefully that could be baked into some of the work you're doing on the pest and waste initiatives. Thank you for those two. Now I do want to turn back to our FDNY update, just to open that up for any questions or comments or on that topic before we move to the next topic. Any comments on that? Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Chief Kerwin, for being here and for that important update. The next topic, oh, did someone have a comment? And now, and maybe this was for Eva and someone from the monitors team, but one of the things that we talked about early on from the CAC was the feedback on NYCHA's organizational plan. And, you know, the HUD agreement obviously requires the monitor to help with that development of the plan. And we solicited feedback from members of the CAC as it was in its various stages of formation, and some of the information that was provided from like Mr. Hall as it relates to the pros and cons of consolidations, and lots of other advice that was given was instrumental to a lot of the concerns that were addressed in the formation of the neighborhood model. So I wanted to just pause to see if there were any updates, comments, or discussion around that.
But one thing I would say is this: the next section that we were writing has been completed. I won't say it reads like a novel, and maybe, you know, Eva, I think at one point we talked about maybe trying to create a kind of a cheat sheet to summarize some of the critical elements of it, and maybe we should go back to that idea and try to do that.
I actually saw a draft of it today. My team is working on it now that we do have, I think we have sign off on the final the phase 1 implementation plan. We wanted to wait for that to be done, but my team is working on a kind of an abridged, more graphical version in order to share more widely. So we hope to have that in the next 2 weeks.
I mean, everyone is welcome to read what we've done, but if it were me, I'd wait for the abridged version.
I think you can read it when you run out of sleeping pills.
It's a good, it's a good plan. I mean, there's a lot in it.
Very long and technical.
Yeah, but there's a lot in it.
Yeah.
Well, it's important, and it's also, I'm glad to hear that there's the abridged version coming out that will be more easily digestible. And I encourage everyone on this call and everyone watching to take the time to really review that plan. Eva, will there be any more opportunity for public feedback, or is it final?
It's final. We've been taking feedback through the project teams all along, which have had resident participation. And it's really the project teamwork which has fed the implementation plan.
Great, excellent. Okay, and then the next topic in our draft update is a really important topic, one that whether it was a central theme of one of our meetings or it inherently came up because it was such an important issue to the residents, and that's the issue of safety and security. As you know, at our last CAC meeting, we invited NYCHA's new head of safety and security, James Secreto, to join us. He spoke about some of his upcoming initiatives, and that continues to be a really important issue to everyone that we speak to at NYCHA. So I was wondering if there were any thoughts, recommendations, updates in that regard. And I'll use this opportunity to highlight our NYPD representative who was hopefully with us, Howard Grossman. Great.
Hi, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you fine.
Thank you. I'm sorry if I missed that segue. I thought you were opening it up to anybody, but I'll start. Great to be back and be with everyone. Yeah, Chief Secreto, James Secreto, was my boss for about 5.5 years. I was just on the phone with him yesterday. I speak to him now on an almost daily basis, and I just want to give a brief update. I no longer work for him. I'm still with the NYPD, but he moved on to safety and security at Nycha. But I want to give everybody a brief update on some numbers and some thoughts and a couple of programs that we're working on. So we have a new administration, as everybody knows, in the city of New York. In the police department, we have a new police commissioner. I personally haven't had the opportunity or the honor of meeting her yet, but we're still pretty new to the administration, and I'm sure she'll work her way through the various bureaus, and we'll get a chance to sit down with her. But my new chief, somebody that I'd like to introduce you to, he's not here with me tonight, but he's a name that hopefully most of you are familiar with. He's not new to the Housing Bureau, and he's certainly not new to the NYPD. He's the former Chief of Community Affairs, Chief Jeffrey Madry. He's been assigned and designated as the new Chief of Housing, effective January 24th. Chief Barrere has moved on to a new assignment within the NYPD. He now heads the Internal Affairs Bureau. He wishes to convey his thanks to the Monitor and the Monitor's team for all the work they're doing for the folks in Nycha. Tremendous work, but he did move on to a different assignment, but he's still part of the NYPD team. Chief Madry headed the housing borough of Brooklyn. He was in charge of the entire borough's public housing. I'm going to say about 10 years ago. I know for during the superstorm Sandy, he definitely was the commander over there. He moved on to various roles. He headed Brooklyn North, the entire patrol borough, and then went to community affairs from there. So many of you probably know him in his role in the Community Affairs Bureau, and now he's back in public housing, leading the entire Housing Bureau. He started about, I would say, 2 weeks ago. Some numbers. So the bad news is, and everybody who watches the news, reads the papers, is violence is still not at all under control, unfortunately. I'm not going to go into a whole host of reasons why they exist. We cover them in earlier CAC sessions. Those problems are still not corrected, legislative issues and things that are happening outside of the executive branch of government that is very difficult to correct for because of the constitutional separation of powers, right? So hopefully those will get corrected. Nonetheless, the NYPD is still there. We're still enforcing the law. We're still making arrests. We're still taking guns off the street. But these are the numbers. In 2022, and these numbers are good through Sunday, February 6th. We always end our numbers on the Sunday that just ended. So,
and you don't have to give us all the statistics, just maybe the high level.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk about the shootings. So we have 18 shootings in public housing for 2022. The city has 118. So we make up 15.3% of the shootings in the city. Now, someone who takes statistics would say, well, that's not too bad, right? 15%, it's nowhere near even half, certainly not the majority. The problem is Nycha is about 5% of the city's population. So, one could say that per capita, 3 times more likely for there to be a shooting in public housing than outside of public housing. And as I've said in previous meetings, that is disturbing. What's the good news? The good news is that percentage, that piece of the pie, was even worse last year. Last year was this time last year was 25%. It was 5 times more occurring in Nycha. So we're making headway. In other words, there's less violence per capita this year to date, and I know it's early in the year, in Nycha than it was the same time last year in Nycha. But we're not at all resting. I mean, 3 times more likely to be the victim of a shooting per capita in public housing is not something to celebrate. There still is a problem. There still is a problem driven by gangs and crews, violence, retaliation. And I want to talk what folks in public housing and outside of public housing who have information, what they can do to help us. We understand there's a reluctance sometimes to come forward. I'm going to tell you about a program called Crime Stoppers, 1-800-577-TIPS. It's available online as well for those more comfortable who want to use a smartphone or a computer. It's completely anonymous. And when I say anonymous, I could call right now from NYPD headquarters and they wouldn't know that I'm calling from the same building they're in. We don't look at caller IDs. We don't look at IP addresses from where the tip comes in. You could be completely anonymous and you get a unique ID number. That's how you identify yourself. And the only reason you would need that number is if you wanted to collect up to $3,500 if the tip leads to an arrest. We're looking for guns. We're looking for perpetrators of violent crimes. We will take any tip, but the tip line is really for violent crimes. Again, it's 1-800-577-TIPS, or you could go to crimestoppers.nypdonline.org, or you can just Google NYPD Crime Stoppers, and it'll get you right to the site. It's really intuitive, very easy to use. You can give as much information as you want or as little, but please give enough. If you know someone's carrying a gun, you know where they live, where they hang out, what they look like. If you happen to have a photo that somehow made it onto your phone, you could upload it, and we'll take it from there. We really need to get the guns off the streets, out of the hands of people who don't have the legal authorization to carry it, and frankly, are carrying it for the wrong reasons. And that is what is leading to the uptick in violence. I'm not going to talk about citywide numbers because we don't have time, but we still have a problem that we're addressing, and we really need the help. There's a lot of folks who live in public housing. Over the years, I've spoken to many, and there's a lot of information out there. They know what's going on. The other thing I want to talk about real quick is quality of life. The number one complaint we get when we meet with residents, believe it or not, is not violence. It's quality of life, homeless, the condition of the development. They don't feel safe. It's a perception. We could read all the crime statistics we want, even if the numbers were trending in the right direction. If someone doesn't feel safe, then their quality of life is diminished. We're trying to eliminate that. Homelessness. We have to be fair to the folks who are in these buildings who don't have a place to go. Prior administration created a task force with the Homeless Outreach, Department of Homeless Services, and they are the lead agency. We do a joint operation with Nycha and DHS, Department of Homeless Services, and we've done a number of sweeps, especially in Upper Manhattan, but also in Lower Brooklyn, where some of the train lines let out for nighttime cleaning. The homeless people are pushed off the trains. Sometimes they go into the developments because it's easy access. It's perceived as a place of safe haven for them and a place that they won't be bothered. At least they feel that way. If you live there, it's not fair to you. You don't deserve to have to step over a homeless person. You don't feel safe. Elderly folks do not feel safe walking past, by, or over a homeless individual. So we've done a number of sweeps there. Again, we're asking people not to take matters into their own hands. If there is a problem, dial 311. If it's not a crime, right? Being homeless is not a crime. Please call 311. We will send someone out with Department of Homeless Services. The last thing I want to discuss is motorcycles, specifically gasoline-powered motorcycles that are sometimes stored inside the buildings. Now, I know there's a lot of motorcycles outside. Inside, right, Chief Kerwin, I'm sure you would agree. I spoke to many people in FD. That's a real serious hazard. And I understand why people bring it inside. They don't want it messed with or stolen or vandalized, but we can't have gasoline inside these buildings. We're asking people, let us know. The police department, we will take the gasoline-powered vehicles out of the building and we will voucher it for safekeeping until somebody picks it up. They do not belong, even if they're legally registered, they do not belong in lobbies, hallways, staircases. I have numerous photos of them all over the buildings, roof landings, rooftops. E-bikes could also be dangerous, but right now we're really focusing on gasoline powered. We don't need a gas tank filled with fuel inside a building overnight. Very, very dangerous. All you need is one young kid who's curious, and I don't have to explain what could possibly happen if they wanted to do something that could be potentially very, very dangerous for everyone else in that building, especially in the middle of the night. If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them.
This is Bart. I've got a question. When I was first appointed, I went around, I visited some of the DAs, and uh, one of the issues that was raised at least a couple of times is that when residents cooperate and want to be relocated to another development or another borough, they were having trouble getting that accomplished. Do you know if that's still a problem? And if it is, maybe we can work on that to help you get the information you need.
Yeah, that's a good question. So there are two programs we administer here. I can't speak for the district attorneys, but in the Housing Bureau, in the police department, we have a interest of justice program, which the folks from Nycha, I'm sure, are familiar with. There are certain criteria that need to be met, which goes beyond the scope, I think, of this meeting. But if those criteria are met, like, for example, someone was the victim of a crime and now they're being threatened, they would qualify and we would help them get a transfer. There are certain things that they have to understand before they get the transfer. Like, for example, they have to move away. They can't just go to another building in the development. They have to go far enough away, and that could be problematic, uprooting someone's life. The kids go to school nearby and so on. But we try to work with them and place them in a similar apartment somewhere else in public housing. There's a second program that we just started to administer about a year ago. I personally spearheaded it, so I'm very familiar with it. It's the Section 8 program. If somebody chose to leave what we call Section 9 housing, public housing, we can help process, and again, if they meet certain criteria, and recommend that they get put in for a Section 8 voucher. If they get the voucher, they qualify and they get it, they would essentially have to leave public housing, and then they would live outside of public housing using that Section 8 assistance. So those are two programs that would at least get them out of harm's way, whatever the issue is. One caveat, these are not immediate action programs, meaning if someone was the victim of an assault and now being threatened, they wouldn't work immediately. Okay, if they were the victim on a Wednesday, now they received a threat on Thursday, they're not getting transferred on Friday, most likely, unless there's immediate action on behalf of the housing authority. Usually it does not happen immediately. It does take time to relocate them. We have to find an apartment. We work with Nycha. The person is entitled to go inspect the apartment and see whether or not the area works for them. So it's not an immediate program. The DA's offices may have access to funds that could relocate people temporarily to hotels or motels. I'm not very familiar with that. We don't do that in the police department. But those are the two programs that are long-term relocation programs. And I am the point of contact for both of those programs. So anyone that needs information could reach out to me about a particular case. Obviously, we're not going to discuss it at this meeting.
Yeah, that's good to hear. They weren't talking about the immediate need. You're right. That's a different problem where somebody wants some immediate change. They were talking more of a long-term where residents were providing information about other residents. And but so what you're talking about is very helpful. Thanks.
Pleasure.
Thank you. And we had a question in the chat. Is the PD hotline number prominently displayed in the buildings and grounds?
I personally haven't seen 1-800, the 1-800 number on any Nycha material. Again, we give out cards at the scenes of crimes, and it may be in the Nycha Journal. Again, it's not a publication of the police department, but 1-800-577-TIPS tips. That's the number. Or they could just Google or do a search for NYPD Crime Stoppers, and it will come right up. They could do it through the computer completely anonymously. We don't track IP addresses. If the tip leads to something, they would get up to a $3,500 cash reward. I've been part of those rewards, by the way. It's amazing to watch somebody get paid in cash anonymously. They literally sign that they received it using their code, their fake code number that they're given. They don't use their name. There's no way to trace it back to them. So
Seems like like helping to publicize this tip line is perhaps something that could be coordinated with NYPD and Nycha. I don't know who's responsible for posting the posters or getting that out, but hopefully that's something that we can kind of mark down as something we could help facilitate Nycha to work on.
yeah, so about 2 years ago, we did a blast email. Nycha helped us on that. Chief Nelson, who since moved on, he helped blast that out. And we also did right before COVID, we did a mass distribution of Crime Stoppers posters and handouts in every major Nycha development. I mean, not every last development, but every large development. We had people in the lobbies handing them out as we started to see a surge in gun violence. It's a pretty popular number. We have vans that go up and down the neighborhood that are wrapped in NYPD Crime Stoppers numbers and website information. So I would hope the average New Yorker paying attention would be somewhat familiar with this concept of Crime Stoppers, but we could always blast it out again. There's no, there's no overdoing something like this.
Great, thank you so much. Does anyone else have any questions, comments on this important topic? Okay, the
I'd
next.
like to clarify something.
Oh, please, go ahead.
And so you stated about Section 8 and somebody transitioning, right, for their safety. In public housing, Section 9, you have the VAWA Act. Well, the VAWA Act is a national act, but they have to respond to that. And you move within Section 9, you don't need Section 8. And actually, the expeditiousness of it, the speed of it is to be faster. Now, those delays that happen is due to Nycha's inefficiencies with their ATPS process, the process that they use to transfer people out. There are different buckets for transfers, but VAWA transfers or domestic violence transfers or any kind of harm where you're harm, that's supposed to be escalated and it's supposed to move quickly. Now, Nycha has a problem in that they need to fix the efficiency of that communication, because I've assisted several with that process that had been delayed 3 months to 7 months, which is not effective. But Section 8 is not the go-to answer. And I just wanted to make that clear for everyone. Nycha does have this mandate, and there is this process for speedy transfer for safety that is supposed to be adhered to. Nycha needs to do better in engaging in that specific part. But thank you.
That's a really good point, Mr. Martinez. And I don't know if Eva has the answer to this tonight, or if you could get back to us with regards to the process for expedited transfers in exigent circumstances like a tipster or victim of violence.
Yes, and I will say Mr. Martinez is right, but actually both the Section 8 and the Section 9 program are covered by VAWA, and so they both have emergency transfer and emergency preferences for both residents in our Section 8 program or in our Section 9 program. And yes, our transfer process is cumbersome. One of the biggest problems, obviously, in our transfer process is just the lack of units to transfer to. And our unit turnover is slower than it should be. It takes us, we obviously have to do full lead abatement when a unit turns over, and it's a big process. So it is something we're starting to look into, but the biggest problem is having those units available and ready to go when a transfer, an expedited transfer request comes up. So that's a very fair point.
Right. If I could just add to that, while I don't work for Nycha, Mr. Martinez brings up some good points. One of them was that you don't have to offer someone Section 8. Section 9 within Nycha is acceptable. Now, what we do is we just offer both. And at least I was told we could do both at the same time. Someone could put in for both, see which one comes at first, and then make the decision what works better for them. I had someone that transferred out of New York State because Section 8 is good throughout the country. And she's now living in another state because she was the victim of a crime. She was attacked in her own building. And that worked for her. She did not want to stay in New York State anymore. So we give the option to the victim. And like Ms. Trimble said, yes, VAWA, or Violence Against Women Act, the federal law, both programs have definitions that fall under it. And whichever one comes through first, if that's the one they want, great. If they want to wait for the other one, the only thing is they obviously cannot accept entry into both. Once they could either pick one or the other, and we leave it up to them. But you definitely did your homework, Mr. Martinez. You definitely seem to know a lot about these programs. So kudos.
Thank you.
And I want to thank you just for giving the clarity. I just wanted to make sure that people had the clarity on that and it wasn't leading to one way. Thank you so much, Ms. Trimble and Mr. Howard. And I only say that because I can't see your full name. There's some officer, commanding officer. I don't want to get the title wrong either, sir. But and just lastly,
that's fine. That's fine, Mr.
I just want to say that you guys have my deepest sympathies and condolences for this huge loss, Officer Rivera and Officer Morales. I know that this is not in regards to that, but the city did feel that they were so young and so untimely, and we truly appreciate the service that they provided and that you guys provide. And so please accept my condolences.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Bart, did you have a question or comment?
No, I just wanted to join in what Mr. Martinez said. And I have nothing to add to it. He said it very well. Thank you.
Thank you. And before we leave the topic of safety and security, I had two more quick questions. One, I've heard you say, but if you could confirm again here, that verticals are continuing practice in all of the developments, is that right?
Yeah, we don't call them verticals anymore. They're called interior patrols. For years they were called verticals, but yes, interior patrols are still part of what we do. And if anyone heard that we stopped doing them, the city of New York agreed to stop doing the federal TAP program, which is not applied to public housing. It's something, again, beyond the scope of this meeting, but that came out of a lawsuit involving a different type of group of individuals, not public housing residents. It was involving privately owned apartment buildings where the owners had affidavits on file letting the officers randomly do interior patrols. Again, public housing, we still do interior patrols as Nycha's agent. So that's still happening.
Okay, that's good to hear. And then do the officers take notes about conditions in the buildings?
Asha, if I might, Asha, this is a whole thing that we're working on. And maybe we could take it offline, but it's for those who don't know, the officers are looking at things that are not criminal. They see things, I should say, that are not criminal, and we're trying to find a better way for the information to get to Nycha so that it can be dealt with. And the world has changed. Officers are now they have handhelds and they have cameras. So instead of filling out a form in triplicate, which has been the way of doing it for a long time, we're looking at a more efficient way of getting the information to Nycha. So we're deep into this one.
That would be great to see something like that be coordinated. Thank you so much for those important updates and those important initiatives. And then the next topic that I was hoping we could get to and get updates on, and I'll turn to my colleague Edna and Eva with regards to progress made on the capital tracker issue. If you could tell us more about that and tell us progress to date.
Okay. Sure. Hi, it's Edna. But I guess I will defer it to Eva because what started out, taking my video on there, what started out as a concern raised at one of the very early CAC meetings by residents as well as electeds, prominently among them being our now HUD regional director, that there was lack of transparency on monies coming from elected officials going to NYCHA through often the advocacy of residents and not knowing where those monies land. And so that challenge was accepted by Eva and her team. And with the, you recall at our last CAC meeting, Parks demonstrated what they have by way of a capital tracker. And now we are poised to have one from NYCHA. So this is again, accomplishment from the CAC and its membership in this intergovernmental approach to problem solving. So I'll turn it over to Eva and her team.
Thank you, Edna and Asha. Yes, I'm very pleased to report that our Capital Projects Division has been working closely with our Information Technology Group to develop a capital projects tracker that is based off of the format that the Parks Department used. We don't want to recreate a wheel when we know that there's already a tool out there that's working, that elected officials understand and know how to use, and that the general public understand and know how to use. And so we have been building a capital project tracker that's modeled off of Parks. It will be live on our website, we hope, around April 1st. And you will be able to look up by borough, by location, by type of capital project, or just by looking at the map and click on the project or the development and see what capital projects are going on, who funded it, what the status of the project is, what the original project plan is, what the current project plan is, the state of procurement. So we are working to pull all of our data information systems together to feed that tracker with our maps. And we are hoping to do a pretty broad and inclusive user acceptance testing so that we want residents and advocates and elected officials to really test the site and see what's working. This kind of brings back to that service design approach that I mentioned from the annual review process, and really making sure that the end user is able to make the system work. So we are, as we said, we did a demo for the monitor team earlier today. I think we're probably about 75% built out. We want to start that user testing process pretty soon so that we can incorporate feedback and have a system that's live around April 1st. We're really excited for this. It is definitely something that I wish we had gotten to earlier, but I think we've been improving our capital data systems over the last year. We've been building our IT systems over the last year, and the timing just worked now to bring that together to finally produce this capital tracker.
That's great news. It was great to see the progress made on that. And it looks like it'll be a really informative and user-friendly tool. So that's good, because everyone's wondering, where's the money? Where's the progress on these important projects? So that'll be good to be transparent in that regard. And then next, I wanted to turn to community centers. First, I'll turn to Agnes Mack from DFTA to give us any updates. And then I wanted to hear any progress that's been made in discussions on what happens when community centers leaders call the CCC. Agnes?
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Agnes Mack from the New York City Department for the Aging. I would like to report that about a month ago, Eva's, I forgot her name now, Patricia, I believe is her name, met with me to talk about the new system that they will be developing, whereby when the community centers or senior centers have a repair issue, when they call it in, NYCHA will sort of triage them differently and also have a different script for the operators so that when they take down the complaints, it will be more catered to the community center space, and perhaps then from there on the repair will be funneled appropriately. So we had We have had one meeting, and I understand that she will continue to meet with other city agencies that have space at Nycha locations, and to gather more information, and then she'll come back to us to talk about next step. So I'm very happy that we started this process, and I will continue to work with Patricia to see what she needs in order to, get this going. So that's one update that I have, and Eva, feel free to jump in if you would like to.
I just want to add that Patricia did meet with DYCD as well, I think last week, and had a productive meeting with them to talk through the project. In the meantime, we've been doing on the back end some work with our technology group to understand what's needed to adjust the CCC script so that operators can better take in the calls from community centers. We've also started working more closely with our operations division just to better understand the repair issues and the repair process, as poor Agnes really understands all too well. We have had some major repair issues in DIFTA sites just in the last few weeks. And so Patricia and I are now on all of these communications to really see the repair process step by step, and to help maybe inform and improve that process as well. So it's kind of, we're getting our hands into everything. We're planning some site visits as well to go out and speak to some of the providers.
Right, and I really have to thank you, Eva, for helping to escalate some of the more urgent issues. We greatly appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
And if I might add, again, hearkening back to the early days of the CAC, we heard this issue of the frustrated access of community center directors to get repairs done from CAC member JT Falcone. And under his auspices, the monitor had a number of focus groups with center directors. And again, this issue of repairs rang loud and clearly. So this is, again, is a outgrowth of work done by the CAC members, and particularly JT, Agnes, and Daryl, and now with Eva's leadership. It's another example of this intercollaborative, wonderful process that the CAC has going on under the brilliance of Bart Schwartz.
So thank you very much. I am very honored to be working with such a wonderful team. The next thing that I would like to report on is from some of the nutrition activities that we have been conducting for seniors living at Nycha locations. So this month, we have started a nutrition education workshop for Nycha residents. We started 2 workshops, one in English and one in Spanish. The first class started on February 4th, and it's every Friday for 4 weeks in a row. So, so far we have gone through, actually it started maybe at the end of January. So we have gone through 2 classes so far. We have another 2 classes to go, and then we'll be finished with the first cycle. So for the English nutrition education class, we had 42 participants. And for the Spanish-speaking nutrition education class, we have 42 participants. We are planning to send out material again for the second round of nutrition education classes. Again, is a series of 4 classes, and we are planning to start them maybe sometime in March or April. We understand that wellness is a big item for seniors, and everybody wants to know how to eat healthy, how to eat properly, what are the better ways of maintaining good health, especially during the pandemic. So these workshops are very well received. The other thing that I would like to share here is our live cooking demonstration, which is being held on the 3rd Wednesday of every month at 11 o'clock. So the flyers the flyer that you're looking at is our upcoming live cooking demonstration in English, which is going to happen on February 16, Wednesday at 11 o'clock. The recipe is Asian stir-fried tofu. And the Zoom link is, and the meeting ID, the passcode, dial-in number, and the ingredients are on the flyer. For anyone who's, these type of information is regularly shared with the Nycha Family Partnership Unit, so that they may share it with their resident associations and with their seniors, in addition to our community partners that are located at Nycha location. For our January live cooking demonstration, we have had a huge turnout. We had 317 participants participating in the live cooking demonstration. 18 of our senior centers joined live from their site, from their big screen TV. And we had 2 senior centers that actually cooked with us and shared the food after the cooking demonstration. So I have also shared with Florita here a recipe card for our January cooking demonstration. It was a curried red lentil soup. I will tell you that I personally tried this recipe and it was really very good. I just tried cooking it again this past Wednesday and it was very good, in addition to it being very nutritious. So I am sharing the recipe card here with the ingredients and the directions for cooking. And we also have a recording of the live cooking demonstration. If anyone wants to watch it, there's a link, which I have also shared with Florita and Asha. If anyone is interested, they can share it with you. Does anybody have any questions?
This is exciting and important. Thank you for these great updates, and you're making me hungry. Wonderful. Okay, does anyone have any? Thank you again, Agnes, for those great updates. And I'm so glad to hear that the progress is being made on working on the coordination when community centers called the CCC. I wonder if DYCD has any updates in that regard.
Good evening, everyone. We had a great convening with that Eva actually coordinated. A lot of good information came out of it. So I know we're waiting for next steps. So there may be a fuller update in the next meeting.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, and I think we have hit all of the topics and updates I had for this evening. But in case I missed anyone, the floor is open for general updates, questions, or comments. Okay, great. Our next CAC meeting will be on April 12th, which happens to be my birthday. So everyone is invited to have a cake, have a slice of cake or dessert with you as we have the meeting, please. Anything else by way of logistics or updates? Okay, I will, we have our next CAC, as I said, on Tuesday, April 12th, and we'll have our next community meeting. Brooklyn will be our host community and our VIPs for the evening, and that meeting will be on Tuesday, March 15th. And of course, please feel free to contact the monitors number at any time. Look for updates and information on our website, nychamonitor.com. Email monitor@nychamonitor.com or give us a call.
Madam,
Reach our toll-free number as well. Rose, are you trying to say something?
yes, can I ask the chief a question if he's still here?
Yes, please.
Yes, I would like to ask, like a lot of crimes, if it's on a federal property, the crime is a lot higher, usually from a regular city street, since Nycha is funded by the HUD, by the federal government. And we see, as the chief was saying, like before, we have a lot of shootings. We have 18 shootings so far this year. Maybe we should look in center legislation any Nycha property or any development was funded by HUD, the crime should be higher from just selling guns on the street, shooting on the street. Is in a Nycha territory, if you're dealing with illegal, the crime should be higher from regular street, because in a Nycha development, if something happened in a building, it's like cancer spreading out. If you're selling guns in a development, you're going to have a lot more customers in the shootings between tenants, between people. The casualties and people should get injured will be a higher amount, a lot more people. As we see in the Nycha development right now, so many shootings. I think we should, it's fair to say we should look into that, try to increase the crime in Nycha development, any HUD-funded development.
Yeah, hi. So, Mr. Gross, thank you very much. Very interesting idea. The good news is that that idea already exists. Now, the fact that it's funded by HUD is not why it exists. It exists, and I don't want to give a law review session here, but the reason it exists is because we have something called the United States Attorneys. They cover certain areas in New York. The Southern District covers the Bronx and Manhattan, and the Eastern District covers Staten Island, Queens, and Brooklyn. Those two U.S. attorneys, Southern or Eastern District U.S. attorneys, could prosecute any gun crime anywhere that happens in their jurisdiction. It doesn't have to be in a Nycha building. It could be anywhere. It could be in a grocery store. It's up to them. It's called prosecutorial discretion. So while we do present any and every violence case involving a firearm to a certain unit in the NYPD that then presents it to the U.S. attorneys, and they can decide whether or not they want to take it. There's little that the NYPD could do well, we cannot force the federal prosecutors to go ahead and proceed with the case. It's really up to them. And it doesn't have to be because it's a Nycha building. Now, what you're introducing is the concept of creating a statute. It would have to be on the federal level that would essentially mandate that it be prosecuted as a federal crime. It's an interesting idea, and it's definitely something that you could bring to federal legislators, Congress, people in Congress, and the two U.S. senators from New York. But we could prosecute anything on the state level, and if the U.S. attorneys want to take it federal, they could do it, but not because necessarily it's Nycha. They could do it just because they have the right. It's within their jurisdiction to do it. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, actually, I'll add a little bit to that. What you just heard is certainly correct. But I was chief of the criminal division in the Southern District of New York, and so I was the one people came to decide to ask for us to prosecute things, and it is worth pursuing. It can be turned into projects rather than individual efforts. The federal authorities are very big on trying to enhance the penalties and broaden the breadth of the effort. So there are things that can be done. In the drug area, there are enhanced penalties if you deal drugs within, I forget how the distance, but near a school or a house of worship.
Yeah, 1,000 feet.
Yeah, and it's right, let me tell you, in Manhattan for sure, it's very hard to find a place that isn't 1,000 feet from a school or a house of worship.
That's correct.
So there are ways that you can use the existing law, and it is worth talking. I don't think you need to have new legislation. In fact, that's taking on quite a burden. But there may be ways to use the current law. I'm an appointee as the monitor by the Southern District. The civil division is handling it, but we also deal with the criminal division, and maybe we should have some further discussions with them about that. Our dealings thus far with the criminal division have not dealt with those violent crimes. It's been other things that we've uncovered during the course of our work. But we should talk some more about it.
Thank you.
Thank you for that important and the responses. So with that, we're at time. I thank everyone for a really robust meeting. I thank you for all the hard work to date, and I hope that we will continue shining light on initiatives and thoughts that are important to residents, and and hopefully we can see some more traction on some of these important areas. Bart, I will turn it to you to close us out, please.
Not much more to say. I just think you did a great job. It was, I was a little concerned when I heard the plan that maybe there would be too repetitive of things we had done, but clearly that's not what happened. This was really adding on to what we did, and it's a great kind of summation. And I'm really delighted that Jeff Evans was on the call, because I don't that he could see what some of the things we do that don't always get attention or get into the meetings that we have. This committee has really been terrific. The people on it have been terrific. So I thank you and hope everybody has a terrific and safe evening. Thanks.
Bart.
Good night.
Thanks,
Good night.
everyone. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.